Get out, and stay where I can see you so you don't cause any more trouble." The bank manager's voice cut through the quiet hum of the branch, sharp and cold. "You look like a fraud. You don't belong here, and I will not serve you." Her finger was pointed directly at the black schoolgirl standing before the teller. In an instant, a security guard's grip tightened around 14-year-old Imani Montgomery's arm. He marched her across the polished marble floor of the Hancock Trust Bank, his heavy footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. Every eye in the busy branch turned to watch the spectacle, a young girl in a private school uniform, being forcefully escorted from the counter like a common criminal. "Stand right here, don't move," the guard ordered, positioning Imani in a corner far from the exit, yet visible to everyone. She was on display, isolated. Humiliation burned hot on her cheeks as wealthy customers whispered and stared, their curiosity tinged with judgment. Ms. Victoria Hargrove, the bank's manager, stood with her arms crossed, a smug, satisfied smirk spreading across her face. Panic began to rise in Imani's chest, tight and suffocating. All she had wanted to do was deposit her scholarship funds. Now, her documents, the check, her ID, the award letter, had been confiscated. She frantically searched through her backpack, a new wave of dread washing over her as she realized something else was missing. Her heart sank. "My phone," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I left it at school during study hall. Please, I just need to call my father. He's expecting me home soon." Ms. Hargrove walked past, her designer heels clicking sharply against the floor. "That's not our problem," she said, not even gracing Imani with a glance. "You'll wait there until we're done verifying your documents, if they're even real." That same morning, the world had felt full of promise. Imani had sat at her family's breakfast table, her excitement a palpable energy in the room as she carefully placed her $5,000 academic scholarship check into a folder. "Are you sure you don't want me to come with you?" Dr. Josiah Montgomery had asked, looking up from the financial section of his newspaper. Ironically, a small article on the page detailed his own company's recent acquisition of the Hancock Financial Group. "I'm 14 now, Dad. I need to learn to do these things myself," Imani had replied with a quiet determination that made her father's proud smile say everything. As one of the nation's most respected financial experts, Dr. Montgomery had built his empire from nothing, focusing on community development and economic justice. Their home, though located in one of Oak Ridge's most prestigious neighborhoods, was elegant but understated, a reflection of his belief that true wealth came from investing in people, not possessions. Imani was her father's daughter. Despite attending Westridge Academy where tuition was astronomical, she wore the simplest version of the required uniform. No designer accessories, just the standard blazer, skirt, and loafers. Her only personal touch was a small leather-bound notebook she carried everywhere, filling it with observations in her neat, precise handwriting. She was exceptional not just in academics, but in her quiet perceptiveness. For her first independent banking trip, she had chosen the Hancock Trust Bank. It was the flagship branch of her father's new acquisition, though none of the employees knew of the ownership change yet. Its marble floors and mahogany paneling spoke of old money and exclusivity. The branch manager, Victoria Hargrove, had built her career on catering to a certain clientele, once telling a new employee, "We have standards to maintain. We need to be selective about who feels comfortable here." When Imani had entered the bank that morning, her heart fluttered with nervous excitement. "I'd like to deposit this check into my account, please," she practiced under her breath, a simple transaction, one that happened 100 times a day. But when she finally reached the teller's window and slid her scholarship check across the counter, the teller's professional courtesy evaporated. Her eyes widened at the $5,000 amount, then narrowed as she looked from the check to the young black girl in a school uniform. "This is quite a large check for someone your age," the teller, Ms. Donovan, said, her voice loud enough for others to hear. "Where did you get this?" "It's my academic scholarship," Imani explained calmly, though she could feel heat rising in her cheeks. Ms. Donovan held the check to the light, scrutinizing it for any sign of forgery before pressing a button at her station. Moments later, Victoria Hargrove appeared. She took the check without acknowledging Imani, speaking to the teller as if the girl were invisible. "Another one of these?" Victoria sighed. "We've had issues with fraudulent checks from people like you lately." The emphasis on the last 3 words was unmistakable. "It's my academic scholarship," Imani repeated, holding out her award letter. Victoria snatched it from her hand. "I'll be the judge of that." She scanned the prestigious letterhead, a flicker of disbelief and resentment crossing her face. "Identification," she demanded. Imani handed over her school ID and bank card. Victoria collected everything. We'll need to hold these for verification. She then leaned over the counter, her voice a venomous whisper. And how exactly did someone like you get this scholarship? Did you actually earn it? I maintain a perfect grade point average and scored in the 99th percentile on the National Academic Assessment, Imani stated, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Victoria let out a sharp, dismissive laugh. I'm sure there are all sorts of special programs these days. Lowered standards, quotas to fill. You think you can just walk in here like you own the place? I just want to deposit my check, Imani said. The manager's expression hardened. Listen to me. I run this branch, and I decide who gets service. And something about you doesn't feel right. She leaned closer, her voice dropping again. This kind of money has a way of disappearing around a certain kind of person. Ma'am, I'm not here for trouble, Imani replied, her composure finally starting to fray. But you are acting like a terrible person, Victoria's cruel smirk returned. I'm going to make this very difficult for you. By the time I'm done, you'll wish you never walked in here. She turned to the security guard. Mr. Tate, please escort this girl away from the counter. She's causing a disturbance. And so Imani was marched to the corner. For hours, she stood there as the bank's life continued around her. The wall clock became a tormentor, each minute an eternity. She watched as white customers were not only served promptly but treated with exaggerated courtesy. Victoria personally escorted several to her office, returning with coffee and water for them. Not once did she look at Imani, except to instruct the guard to keep a close watch on her. As the third hour began, one employee, a young Asian-American teller named Melody Pham, kept glancing between the clock, Imani, and her manager. She twice approached Victoria, only to be sharply dismissed. Her expression was a mixture of sympathy and helplessness, a silent acknowledgement of the injustice unfolding. Just past 1:30 p.m., Imani noticed Victoria's demeanor shift. The manager, so confident in her cruelty, now seemed agitated. She checked her gold Rolex repeatedly, then disappeared into the restroom, emerging minutes later with refreshed makeup. She was preparing for someone important. At 1:45 p.m., a phone call came. With a subtle nod from the receptionist, Victoria tensed, then forced a practiced smile as she walked toward her private office. In her haste, she left the door ajar, just enough for a determined eye to see through. From her corner, Imani watched. A tall man in a custom-tailored charcoal suit entered Victoria's office through a side entrance. Imani recognized him instantly. Harrison Wells, CEO of Meridian Banking Group, one of her father's main competitors. "Are you sure no one saw me come in?" Wells asked. "Yes, Mr. Wells," Victoria replied. "No one knows you're here." She then pulled a thick manila folder from her desk. Stamped across it in bold red letters was a name that made Imani's breath catch in her throat. Confidential Montgomery document. "This has everything," Victoria said, her voice trembling with excitement as she slid the folder across the desk. "Client lists, asset valuations, high net worth accounts, even proprietary investment strategies they're planning post-acquisition." Wells opened the folder, his eyes widening with satisfaction. "Excellent work, Victoria. With the bank focused on the acquisition, they'll never see us coming. Hancock Bank will be out of business soon." Imani's stomach churned. Her hands trembling, she pulled out her small leather notebook and began to write, her pen flying across the page, documenting every damning word of the corporate betrayal unfolding before her. She was no longer just a victim of discrimination, she was now a witness. And the woman holding her captive had no idea that the empire she was plotting to destroy belonged to the father of the girl she had so carelessly cast aside. With a hand gently guiding the woman's elbow, she was the very image of solicitous care. Yet, as they passed the elderly man, Victoria offered not so much as a glance in his direction. He shifted in his seat, a quiet sigh escaping as he checked his watch. It was a familiar, stinging neglect. The pattern repeated itself when a white teenager, no older than 16, inquired about his first checking account. "Of course we can help you," Victoria assured him, seeming to materialize from thin air. "No need for your parents, we can set you up right away." Imani's eyes drifted to the policy poster on the wall behind Victoria's desk. Its message was unequivocal. New accounts for minors require a parent or guardian's signature. The hypocrisy was a physical thing, a sour taste in the air. Imani turned a fresh page in her notebook. At the top, in bold block letters, she wrote, Evidence. The discriminatory clockwork ticked on. A Latino couple approached her desk with a simple question about a transaction. Without even glancing at their account, Victoria offered a well-rehearsed apology. "I'm afraid the system is terribly slow today. It might take several days to process." Not 5 minutes later, an older white man in a golf shirt presented a similar inquiry. Victoria's demeanor transformed instantly. "Mr. Garrison, let me expedite this for you," she purred. "We wouldn't want to waste your valuable time. I'll process this as a priority transaction right now." But the most jarring spectacle was yet to come. A young white boy, perhaps 7 or 8, broke free from his mother and began running circles around the lobby furniture, his laughter echoing through the quiet bank. Instead of a reprimand for a disruption far greater than anything Imani had done, Victoria approached with a saccharine smile. She crouched to the boy's level, her eyes twinkling. "What an energetic young man you have," she said to the mother before turning to the boy. "Would you like a lollipop, a special treat for our special customers?" The word struck Imani like a physical blow, a stark and cruel counterpoint to the venom Victoria had directed at her only hours before. The final act in this parade of prejudice unfolded when a well-dressed black family approached Victoria's desk, a mortgage application in hand. "We'd like to discuss home loan options," the father began, his voice carefully modulated by a lifetime of navigating spaces not built for him. "We've been pre-approved elsewhere, but we prefer to work with a local institution." Victoria barely glanced at their paperwork. "You might find our downtown branch more suitable for your needs." Her emphasis dripped with subtext. "They specialize in diverse lending programs." The family exchanged a knowing look, one that spoke volumes of shared experience. They collected their documents with quiet dignity and left, the humiliation clear in their posture despite their efforts to conceal it. Imani's pen flew across the page, documenting each incident with meticulous detail. Times, descriptions, verbatim quotes. The clock on the wall now showed that 3 hours and 17 minutes had passed since she'd been exiled to the corner. A dull ache had settled in her legs, and the humiliation had coiled into a cold, hard knot in her stomach. But alongside it, something else had taken root, a quiet resolve, fueled by every injustice she had witnessed. Across the bank, Melody had been watching the clock with growing unease. At precisely 3:15 p.m., her scheduled break arrived. She removed her name badge, but instead of heading to the employee lounge, she picked up a stack of deposit slips and a cleaning cloth. With Victoria occupied and the security guard engrossed in his phone, Melody began a casual choreography of defiance, wiping down counters and straightening brochures as she made her way toward Imani. Reaching the corner, she kept her back to the security cameras, bent down as if to retrieve a fallen pen, and whispered, "Are you okay? You've been here for hours." The unexpected kindness almost shattered Imani's composure. "They took my documents," she whispered back, her voice tight with emotion. "I can't leave without them, and I need to call my father." Melody glanced over her shoulder. With trembling fingers, she slipped her personal cell phone from her pocket, concealing it beneath the cloth. "I could lose my job for this," she murmured, pressing the phone into Imani's hand. "But this isn't right. What they're doing to you. I've seen it before, but never this bad." "Thank you," Imani breathed, disbelief warring with gratitude. "Be quick," Melody cautioned, positioning herself to block the camera's view. "Victoria checks the feed sometimes." With shaking hands, Imani dialed. Her father, Dr. Josiah Montgomery, answered on the second ring. "Hello?" His deep, reassuring voice nearly broke her. "Dad?" she whispered, the tears she'd held back now threatening to fall. "It's me. I'm at the bank." "Imani, what's wrong? You should have been home hours ago." "They took my scholarship check," the words tumbled out. "They made me stand in a corner. They have my ID, everything. The manager, she was meeting with someone named Harrison Wells." The silence on the other end was heavy. "Harrison Wells?" her father finally asked, his voice unnaturally calm. "Are you certain?" "Yes." She gave him a folder. It was marked Confidential, Montgomery Acquisition. "They were talking about you, Dad. About the acquisition. She's giving him client lists." Imani could hear her father's controlled breathing, the measured rhythm he used to master his anger. Stay calm, Imani. I'm on my way. My assistant, Ms. Larkin, will be there in 5 minutes. Don't let them know who I am. They've been treating people differently based on race, she added. I've been writing it all down. A flicker of pride entered his voice. Of course you have. That's my girl. Keep documenting everything. That evidence is exactly what we need. I'm scared, Dad. I know, sweetheart. But you are stronger than you know. Just hold on a little longer. As the call ended, Melody reappeared, retrieving the phone. Help is coming, Imani whispered. Melody gave a single tense nod and returned to her station. The next 17 minutes crawled by. Then, at 3:42 p.m., the bank's glass doors swung open. A woman entered, moving with the unmistakable authority of someone accustomed to commanding rooms. Ms. Larkin was tall, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit, and carried a sleek leather portfolio. She scanned the bank with cool calculation. Victoria, sensing wealth, immediately emerged from her office. Welcome to Hancock Trust. I'm Victoria Hargrove, branch manager. How may I assist you? I'm here regarding an emergency, Ms. Larkin stated, her voice crisp and efficient. Before Victoria could reply, her cell phone rang. She glanced at the screen, her annoyance turning to surprise. Excuse me, she said, then answered. This is Victoria Hargrove. Her expression shifted from confidence to confusion. Yes, sir. No, I wasn't aware. Yes, all protocols were followed. The call ended, but another began immediately, then another. Her phone was suddenly buzzing with a relentless flood of calls and messages. I apologize, she said to Ms. Larkin, her voice strained. This emergency? I need to speak with Imani. Victoria's brow furrowed. Who? Oh, the girl with the suspicious check? She gestured dismissively toward the corner. We're still verifying her documentation. The daughter of Dr. Josiah Montgomery, Ms. Larkin clarified, her tone leaving no doubt as to the weight of that name. Victoria's practiced smile froze. The color drained from her face as the pieces clicked into place. The Montgomery scholarship, the confiscated ID, the girl she had humiliated, and the confidential folder she had just handed to Harrison Wells. We were following standard protocols, she stammered, her confidence evaporating. So you treat all young customers this way? Ms. Larkin asked, her voice dangerously quiet, unless they're affiliated with someone of significance? Ignoring Victoria's flustered attempt to answer, Ms. Larkin walked directly to Imani. Miss Montgomery, she said, her professional demeanor softening. I apologize for this. Your father is on his way. Relief washed over Imani. I'm okay, just tired of standing. Where are her documents? Ms. Larkin demanded, turning back to Victoria. Victoria scurried to her office and returned with the folder, her smile now a strained, artificial mask. If we had known, she began, we would have expedited things. So your service depends on family connections? Ms. Larkin cut in. Is that the official policy of Hancock Trust Bank? We will require complete, unaltered security recordings from all cameras for today. This is now a formal investigation. Victoria's phone continued to buzz, a frantic symphony of unanswered calls from regional executives. Then, a sleek black Mercedes S-Class glided to a stop directly in front of the bank's main entrance. The uniformed driver emerged, opening the rear door with practiced precision. Other luxury cars began to arrive, circling like predators. From them emerged Talia Reeves, the regional director, and grim-faced board members, their presence at a local branch unprecedented. Inside, Victoria's composure shattered. What is going on? She demanded, frantically checking her reflection as she tried to appear in control. The bank doors opened one final time. Josiah Montgomery entered. At 6'2", with broad shoulders and the deliberate movements of a man who knew his own power, he filled the space not with noise, but with sheer presence. The entire bank fell silent. His eyes immediately found Imani, and a flash of controlled rage crossed his face before softening into concern. He walked directly to her. Are you all right? He asked, his voice low. I'm okay, Dad, she replied, holding up her notebook. I have something for you. Pride flickered in his eyes before he turned to face Victoria. His voice, when he spoke, was perfectly modulated, carrying the unmistakable weight of absolute authority. I believe you have been holding my daughter against her will. Talia Reeves hurried forward. Dr. Montgomery, I am so deeply sorry. I was only just informed. Miss Reeves, I can explain, Victoria interrupted desperately. Talia silenced her with a single sharp gesture. Dr. Montgomery surveyed the room. For those who are unaware, he announced, his voice carrying effortlessly, I recently acquired a majority share in the Hancock Financial Group. That makes me your boss. A wave of shock rippled through the staff. But I am not here today as a bank owner. I am here as a father. And what I have found, his gaze locked onto Victoria, is far worse than I could have ever imagined. Victoria stumbled backward, grasping the counter for support. The full, catastrophic weight of her actions hit her with physical force. I didn't know, she whispered, her face ashen. The conference room, Dr. Montgomery commanded. Minutes later, the room had become an impromptu tribunal. Board members, executives, and a pale Harrison Wells, intercepted by security, filed in. On a large screen, the day's security footage played out. Imani's polite arrival, her 4 hours of humiliation, and the stark, undeniable evidence of Victoria's discriminatory treatment of one customer after another. Finally, Imani stood before them all, her notebook in hand, ready to give her testimony. Despite her exhaustion, her voice was a clear, steady instrument as she read from the meticulously detailed notes she had taken. I documented everything I saw while I was forced to stand there, she explained, her fingers tracing the lines of timestamps, descriptions, and direct quotes that filled the pages. At 1:52 p.m., I observed Ms. Hargrove meeting with this man, Harrison Wells. Her hand gestured toward the competitor, who sat like a statue at the far end of the table, his face an unreadable mask of stone. She gave him a folder, clearly marked Confidential Montgomery Acquisition, and they discussed the transfer of high-value clients to his bank. Dr. Montgomery's expression remained impassive, but his eyes burned with a fire he held tightly in check. Mr. Wells, he informed the board, his voice a low, dangerous hum, is an executive at Meridian Banking Group, our direct competitor. The documents Ms. Hargrove provided him contained confidential merger information, acquisition timelines, and our most sensitive client data. He paused, letting the weight of the accusation settle into the silent room. This isn't merely a matter of discrimination. This is corporate espionage. As if on cue, security personnel collected Victoria's phone and connected it to the presentation screen. A series of text messages between her and Harrison Wells illuminated the wall. Have list of high-value clients ready for transfer, read one from Wells. The evidence mounted relentlessly, a rising tide of damnation, each piece more conclusive than the last. Through it all, Victoria's attempts to explain herself dissolved into a panicked, incoherent scramble for excuses. When the last piece of evidence had been presented, Dr. Montgomery rose to his feet. His voice carried no theatrics, no overt anger, only the calm, heavy certainty of a man who understood the profound breach that had occurred. Banking is built on a foundation of trust, he began. Every single person who walks through our doors deserves to be treated with respect, regardless of their age, their race, or their perceived wealth. He gestured to the security footage still frozen on the screen. What happened today has revealed a culture of discrimination that ends now. My daughter was treated this way because of how she appears. It makes me wonder, how many others have been? How many potential customers walked away from our doors feeling unwelcome or unworthy? How many dreams of owning a home or starting a business were quietly crushed by biased treatment? Seeing her career and reputation disintegrating before her eyes, Victoria made a final, desperate plea. I'm sorry, sir. It won't happen again. I was only following protocols, she insisted, her voice thin and breaking. Talia Reeves, who had been a silent observer until now, finally spoke. Her voice sliced through the tension, cold as ice. By holding a minor against her will for hours? That's your understanding of protocol? By selling confidential information to our competitors? Dr. Montgomery added, his quiet tone more damning than a shout. Is that also standard protocol at Hancock Trust? Victoria had no answer. As the meeting neared its close, Dr. Montgomery gestured toward the door. One person in this branch showed true integrity today. Melody Pham was escorted in, her eyes wide with nervousness as every head in the room turned toward her. Miss Pham risked her job to help my daughter when no one else would. She chose basic human decency over blind obedience to corrupt leadership. Melody's expression shifted from fear to astonishment as he continued. That is the kind of character this institution should value. Talia Reeves stood, her gaze fixed on Victoria. "You are fired, effective immediately, pending potential criminal charges." She nodded to the security team. "Please escort Ms. Hargrove from the building." Just then, the conference room doors opened again, and two police officers entered. The charge was no longer theoretical. As they were led away, Victoria cast one final, haunted glance back at the room, at the power she had wielded so cruelly, at the young girl who had undone it all, and at the formidable man she had so foolishly underestimated. Her face was a canvas of shock and dawning remorse as the consequences of her actions finally crashed down upon her. The glass doors slid shut, and for the first time in nearly 4 hours, Imani Montgomery was finally free to sit down. 3 months later, the world had shifted. The auditorium at Westridge Academy buzzed with the energy of students from across the district. At the podium stood Imani Montgomery, no longer a humiliated girl in a corner, but a poised young woman with a fire of purpose in her eyes. "Financial knowledge isn't just for adults or the wealthy," she said, her confident voice filling the room as she clicked to the next slide. "It's power, and everyone deserves access to that power, regardless of your age, your background, or how much money your family has." Harrison Wells and Victoria had fared far worse. That morning's business news had featured footage of him walking into a federal courthouse, a CNN headline scrolling beneath, "Former banking executive faces corporate espionage charges." The FBI's investigation had unearthed a pattern of corporate theft and discriminatory practices that spanned years. Wells' silver hair seemed to have lost its luster, his once confident stride replaced by the cautious shuffle of a man facing the full weight of the law. Back at the Hancock Trust flagship branch, a transformation was underway. The conference room that had been the stage for Victoria's downfall now served as a training center, where Talia Reeves led a new, comprehensive program on equitable banking. And in the office that had once been Victoria's, Melody Pham sat behind a desk with a new nameplate: Customer Experience Manager. Through the glass walls, she could be seen mentoring new employees, demonstrating with compassion and conviction how to provide every customer with dignity and respect. Later that afternoon, in an ice cream shop across from the academy, Imani and her father enjoyed elaborate sundaes. "I keep thinking about that day," Imani said, stirring her ice cream. "I was so scared standing in that corner, but something inside me just told me to keep watching, to write everything down." Dr. Montgomery nodded, his expression filled with a father's pride. "You turned a terrible experience into an engine for positive change. Your notes didn't just expose what happened to you, they exposed a systemic problem that was hurting countless others." "I never thought I'd become the face of a teen financial literacy program," Imani laughed softly. "The best leaders often emerge from the trenches, not from the sidelines," her father replied. "You experienced the problem firsthand. That's what gives your voice and your solutions so much power." The truth was both simpler and more profound than a single moment of victory. The real lesson wasn't about the danger of mistreating someone powerful. It was about recognizing that every person, no matter who they are or who their father might be, deserves to be treated with basic human respect. If you enjoyed the story, please click the subscribe and like buttons and share it with others. We'll see you in our next video.